Maya Chun pressed her back against the elevator wall as the doors slid shut. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. The man standing beside her smelled like expensive cologne and danger. She had never done anything like this before in her 26 years of life. "Are you sure about this?" His voice was deep and smooth like aged whiskey. She looked up at him through her lashes. Tall, broad shoulders, dark hair that looked like he had run his fingers through it, and eyes that seemed to see right through her carefully built walls. "I'm sure," she whispered, though her hands were shaking. The elevator climbed higher into the luxury hotel. Each floor that passed felt like another step away from her normal, safe life. His name was Alexander Kane. She had met him 3 hours ago at the hotel bar, where she was drowning her sorrows after another failed job interview. He had bought her a drink, then another. They talked about everything and nothing. He made her laugh for the first time in weeks. When he suggested they continue their conversation upstairs, every sensible part of her brain screamed no. But her heart, her lonely heart that had been broken too many times, whispered yes. The elevator stopped on the 20th floor. Alexander's penthouse suite was bigger than her entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the glittering city below. Maya walked to the window and stared out at the lights. She felt his presence behind her before his hands touched her shoulders. "Beautiful view," she said softly. "Very beautiful," he agreed. But when she turned around, he was looking at her, not the city. What happened next felt like a dream. His lips were soft and demanding at the same time. His hands were gentle but confident. He made her feel beautiful, wanted, alive. In his arms, she forgot about her empty bank account, her failed dreams, her string of disappointing dates with men who only wanted one thing, and then disappeared. Maya woke up the next morning wrapped in Egyptian cotton sheets that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Sunlight streamed through the huge windows. Alexander was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed with his phone pressed to his ear. "No, I told you the meeting is at 10, he was saying. His voice had changed. It was colder, more businesslike. "Make sure the contracts are ready. I don't have time for delays." Maya pulled the sheet up to cover herself and watched him. In the morning light, he looked different, more serious, more intimidating. The easy smile from last night was gone, replaced by sharp focus. She suddenly felt very small in his enormous bed. He ended the call and turned to her. The warm brown eyes from last night seemed cooler now. "I have to go," he said, standing up and reaching for his clothes. "Business calls." "Of course," Maya said, trying to keep her voice light. She had known this was just one night. She was not naive enough to expect breakfast and promises. But part of her had hoped for something more than this awkward morning after scene. Alexander pulled on his shirt and straightened his tie. He looked like a different person in his expensive suit. Powerful, untouchable. Nothing like the charming man who had made her feel so special just hours ago. "I had a wonderful time," he said politely, like he was thanking her for a business lunch. He walked to the nightstand and pulled out his wallet. Maya's stomach dropped when she saw him counting bills. "What are you doing?" she asked quietly. "For the cab," he said, not meeting her eyes. "And maybe breakfast." Maya stared at the money in his outstretched hand. $500. More money than she had seen in months, but it felt like a slap in the face. Like payment for services rendered. "Keep it," she said, her voice tight. She got out of bed, wrapping the sheet around herself like armor. "I can find my own way home." Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise maybe, or regret. But it was gone too quickly for her to be sure. "Maya, I didn't mean—" "It's fine," she interrupted. She gathered her clothes from the floor, trying to maintain what little dignity she had left. We both knew what this was. But as she walked to the bathroom to get dressed, she could not shake the feeling that he looked like he wanted to say something else. When she came out 5 minutes later, he was gone. Only the money remained on the nightstand. A reminder of how foolish she had been to think this could be anything more than a one-night stand. Maya took the subway home to her tiny studio apartment in Brooklyn. She tried to forget about Alexander Kane and his gentle hands and the way he had made her feel like she was the only woman in the world. She had bigger problems to worry about, like finding a job before her landlord evicted her. 3 days later, she was sitting in another job interview, trying to look professional in her only good blouse. The interviewer, a stern woman in her 50s, looked unimpressed as she flipped through Maya's resume. Your work history is scattered, the woman said. You've had 5 different jobs in 2 years. Maya tried not to squirm in her chair. I was looking for the right fit, she explained. I believe in giving my all to the right opportunity. The woman made a note on her pad. This position requires someone reliable. Someone who won't disappear after a few months when something better comes along. Maya wanted to explain that she had never quit a job by choice. That companies kept downsizing or closing or deciding they could not afford a marketing coordinator after all. But she knew it would sound like excuses. I understand, she said instead. I'm looking for a long-term position where I can grow and contribute. The woman looked doubtful. Maya left the interview knowing she would not get the job. She was walking down the busy street, lost in her thoughts, when she heard her name being called. Maya. She turned around and felt her breath catch. Alexander Kane was walking toward her, looking just as handsome as he had 3 nights ago. He was wearing a different suit, equally expensive, and his hair was perfectly styled. Several people on the street turned to look at him as he passed. He had that kind of presence that commanded attention. What are you doing here? She asked when he reached her. I have an office nearby, he said, gesturing toward a gleaming skyscraper behind him. Kane Enterprises. Maya felt her mouth fall open. Kane Enterprises was one of the biggest companies in the city. She had even applied for jobs there, though she never got past the online application process. You own Kane Enterprises? She asked weakly. Guilty, he said with a smile that reminded her of the man from the hotel bar. Listen, about the other morning. I handled that badly. I was nervous, I suppose. Nervous. Maya could not hide her surprise. Alexander Kane did not look like a man who got nervous about anything. It's not often I meet someone like you, he said quietly. Someone real. Most of the women I know are interested in my bank account, not conversation about books and travel and dreams. Maya felt her defenses starting to crumble. Alexander, have dinner with me, he said quickly. Let me make it up to you. Please. She should say no. She should walk away and forget about him and his beautiful eyes and the way he made her feel. But, standing there on the busy sidewalk, with people rushing past them like they were in their own private bubble, she could not find the words to refuse. Okay, she heard herself saying. One dinner. His smile was brilliant. Perfect. I'll pick you up at 7. He leaned down and kissed her cheek, a gentle touch that sent shivers through her whole body. Then, he was gone, disappearing into the crowd of suited businesspeople heading back to their important lives. Maya stood there for a long moment, touching her cheek where his lips had been. She was in trouble. Big trouble. That evening, she stood in front of her tiny closet trying to find something appropriate to wear to dinner with a millionaire CEO. Her options were limited. She finally settled on a simple black dress that she had bought for job interviews. It was not glamorous, but it was clean and presentable. Alexander picked her up in a car that probably cost more than she would make in 5 years. The restaurant he took her to was the kind of place where reservations were booked months in advance. Maya felt underdressed despite the hostess's polite smile. You look beautiful, Alexander said as they were seated at a private table by the window. Thank you, Maya replied, smoothing her dress nervously. This place is incredible. I wanted somewhere we could talk, he said. Really talk. And they did talk. For hours. About books and movies and places they wanted to travel. About her dreams of starting her own marketing company someday. About his struggles taking over his family business after his father died. The conversation flowed as easily as it had that first night, and Maya found herself relaxing despite the elegant surroundings. What made you decide to trust me with another chance? She asked over dessert. Alexander was quiet for a moment, turning his wine glass slowly in his hands. Honestly, you're the first person in years who walked away from my money. That meant something. I was offended, Maya admitted. It felt like you were paying me for, I know, he interrupted. And I'm sorry. I'm not good at this. At normal relationships. Most people want something from me. Money, connections, favors. When someone doesn't, I don't know how to act. Maya studied his face in the candlelight. There was something vulnerable in his expression that made her chest tighten. What do you want, Alexander? He reached across the table and took her hand. His fingers were warm and strong. I want to see where this goes. If you're willing. Against every bit of common sense she possessed, Maya found herself nodding. I'm willing. They left the restaurant and walked slowly through the city streets. Alexander held her hand like it was precious. They talked and laughed and stopped to look in shop windows like any normal couple. For a few hours, Maya could almost forget that he was one of the most powerful men in the city, and she was just a struggling woman trying to make ends meet. When they reached her apartment building, Alexander looked up at the old brick facade with interest, not judgment. This is me, Maya said, suddenly, embarrassed by the peeling paint and broken intercom. It has character, he said sincerely. I bet you've made it beautiful inside. She had, with second-hand furniture and plants and artwork from local artists. She had turned her tiny studio into a cozy home. But she was not ready to invite him up yet. Not when everything still felt so fragile and new. Thank you for dinner, she said instead. And for the second chance. Thank you for giving me one, he replied. He cupped her face in his hands and kissed her softly. It was different from their passionate kisses at the hotel. Sweeter, full of promise rather than desperate need. I'll call you, he said against her lips. You better, she whispered back. Maya watched him drive away before going up to her apartment. She felt like she was floating. Maybe, just maybe, this could be something real. Alexander did call. The next day, and the day after that, they had lunch at a quiet cafe where no one would recognize him. They went to a small jazz club where they sat in the back and listened to music with their fingers intertwined. He took her to a bookstore and bought her a novel she had mentioned wanting to read. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. Slowly, carefully, Maya let herself start to believe that this could work. That despite their different worlds, they could find a way to be together. Alexander was different when it was just the two of them. Funny and thoughtful and surprisingly down to earth. He asked about her family, her dreams, her fears. He seemed genuinely interested in who she was, not just what she could give him. They kept their relationship quiet. Alexander explained that his business dealings often attracted media attention, and he wanted to protect her privacy. Maya was relieved. She was not ready for the scrutiny that would come with being linked to someone like him. 3 weeks into their secret courtship, Maya finally invited him up to her apartment. She had spent hours cleaning and rearranging, trying to make the small space look less cramped. Alexander arrived with Chinese takeout and a bottle of wine that probably cost more than her monthly grocery budget. It's perfect, he said, looking around at her carefully decorated studio. It's so you. They ate dinner sitting on her small couch, chopsticks clicking as they shared containers of lo mein and kung pao chicken. Alexander seemed more relaxed than she had ever seen him. He had loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves. His hair was slightly messed from running his fingers through it, a habit she was learning he had when he was thinking. I have something to tell you, he said as they finished eating. Maya felt her stomach drop. Those words never led to anything good. What is it? I have to go to London next week. Business meetings. I'll be gone for 10 days. He reached for her hand. Come with me. Maya blinked in surprise. To London? Alexander, I can't afford. As my guest, he said quickly. I want to show you the city. We could see shows, visit museums, have dinner at places you've only read about. What do you say? Maya stared at him. A trip to London with a man she was falling hard for. It sounded like a fairy tale. Too good to be true. I can't take time off work, she said, though the truth was she was still unemployed and running out of savings. What work? Alexander asked gently. Maya, I know you're between jobs right now. Let me help. Heat flooded her cheeks. She had not told him about her financial struggles, but apparently he had figured it out anyway. I don't want your charity. It's not charity, he said firmly. It's a man wanting to take the woman he's falling for on a romantic trip. Nothing more, nothing less. The woman he's falling for. The words made her heart skip several beats. You're falling for me? Completely, he admitted. His brown eyes were serious and warm. Are you falling for me? Maya looked at this man who had turned her quiet, struggling life upside down in the best possible way. He was everything she had never dared to dream of. Successful, handsome, kind, and somehow interested in ordinary her. Yes, she whispered. I'm falling for you too. He kissed her then, soft and deep and full of promise. When they broke apart, they were both breathless. So you'll come to London? He asked hopefully. Maya thought about her empty calendar, her dwindling bank account, her string of failed job interviews. Then, she thought about exploring a new city with Alexander, seeing the world through his eyes, making memories that would last a lifetime. Yes, she said, throwing caution to the wind. I'll come to London. Alexander's smile was radiant. He pulled her into his arms and spun her around her small living room, both of them laughing like teenagers. When he set her down, he kept his arms around her waist. I should probably go, he said reluctantly. I have an early meeting tomorrow. Stay, Maya said before she could stop herself. Please. Something shifted in his expression. Heat and tenderness and something deeper. Are you sure? Instead of answering with words, she took his hand and led him to her small bed. This time was different from their first night together. Slower, sweeter, less desperate, and more deliberate. He touched her like she was precious, like she was something to be treasured. He whispered her name like a prayer. Afterward, they lay tangled together in her sheets, talking quietly about their trip to London. Alexander traced lazy patterns on her skin as he described places he wanted to show her, restaurants where they would eat, shows they could see. Maya had never felt so happy, so hopeful about the future. She fell asleep in his arms, dreaming of Big Ben and the Tower Bridge and cobblestone streets. She would walk hand in hand with the man she was rapidly falling in love with. Maya woke up the next morning to the sound of Alexander's phone buzzing insistently on her nightstand. He was still asleep beside her, his arm wrapped protectively around her waist. In the early morning light, he looked younger, more vulnerable. She could see the boy he had once been beneath the successful businessman facade. The phone buzzed again, and Alexander stirred. He reached for it without opening his eyes, his other arm tightening around Maya. Kane, he answered, his voice rough with sleep. Maya could not hear the other person's voice, but she felt Alexander tense beside her. What do you mean the announcement moved up? He said, sitting up abruptly. That's not possible. We agreed on next month. He was fully awake now, running his free hand through his hair. Maya pulled the sheet up to cover herself, suddenly, feeling like an intruder in her own bed. No, listen to me carefully, Alexander continued, his voice taking on that cold, businesslike tone she remembered from their first morning together. Under no circumstances is that announcement to be made without my approval. Do you understand me? There was a pause while the other person spoke. Alexander's jaw tightened. Fine. Set up the meeting for this afternoon. And make sure the lawyers are there. He ended the call and tossed the phone onto the nightstand harder than necessary. Everything okay? Maya asked softly. Alexander looked at her like he had forgotten she was there. For a moment, his expression was completely unguarded, and Maya saw something that made her stomach clench. Guilt. Fear. Something that looked almost like panic. Just business, he said, forcing a smile that did not reach his eyes. Nothing for you to worry about. But Maya was worrying. The warmth and intimacy of the night before seemed to evaporate in the face of that phone call. Alexander was already reaching for his clothes, his movements sharp and urgent. I have to go, he said, not looking at her as he pulled on his shirt. Crisis at the office. Alexander, wait, Maya said. But he was already halfway to the door. He paused and turned back to her. For just a moment, he looked like he wanted to say something important, something that might explain the tension radiating from his body and the worry lines that had appeared around his eyes. I'll call you about London, he said instead. We'll talk later, okay? And then he was gone, leaving Maya alone in her rumpled bed with a growing sense of unease she could not quite explain. She tried to push the feeling away as she got ready for another day of job hunting. Alexander was a busy, important man. Of course he had crises to deal with. It did not mean anything was wrong between them. But, as the day wore on, and he did not call, Maya's unease grew stronger. She found herself checking her phone constantly, jumping every time it buzzed with a notification that was not from him. By evening, she was telling herself she was being ridiculous. One phone call did not change everything. But, deep down, a small voice whispered that maybe it did. Maybe she had been fooling herself thinking someone like Alexander Kane could really fall for someone like her. She was curled up on her couch with a cup of tea and a book she could not concentrate on when her phone finally rang. Alexander's name lit up the screen, and Maya felt relief flood through her. Hi, she answered, trying to keep her voice light. Maya, Alexander's voice was strained. We need to talk. And, just like that, Maya's world tilted on its axis. Because those words, spoken in that tone, never led anywhere good. Okay, she said quietly. Now, he said. Can I come up? Maya looked around her small apartment, still messy from their romantic evening the night before. I'll come down, she said. Give me 5 minutes. She threw on jeans and a sweater and ran downstairs to find Alexander waiting by his car. Even in the dim streetlight, she could see the tension in his shoulders, the tight line of his mouth. This was not the man who had spun her around her living room just hours ago. What's wrong? She asked directly. Alexander was quiet for a long moment, staring at something over her shoulder. When he finally met her eyes, Maya saw that same guilt and panic from the morning, but stronger now. There's something I should have told you, he said quietly. Something I should have told you from the beginning. Maya felt like ice water was flowing through her veins. What? The phone call this morning. It was about an announcement. An engagement announcement. He took a shaky breath. Maya, I'm engaged. I'm supposed to marry someone else. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. She actually took a step backward, her hand flying to her chest. Engaged? She whispered. It's complicated, Alexander said quickly. It's not what you think. It's a business arrangement, not a love match. Our families have been planning it for years. It's about mergers and contracts and things that have nothing to do with love. Maya stared at him in shock. A business arrangement? Yes, he said, stepping toward her. Maya, what I feel for you is real. What we have is real. The engagement is just a piece of paper, a corporate merger disguised as a wedding. Just a piece of paper? Maya's voice was getting louder. Alexander, you're engaged to be married to another woman. A woman I barely know, he protested. A woman I certainly don't love. Maya, please, let me explain. Explain what? Maya demanded. Explain how you've been lying to me for weeks. Explain how you let me fall for you when you belong to someone else. Explain how you invited me to London when you're planning a wedding. I'm not planning anything, Alexander said desperately. This engagement has been hanging over my head my entire adult life. I never wanted it. I've been looking for a way out. And what was I? Maya asked, her voice breaking. Your way out? Your last fling before you settled down with the appropriate woman. No, he said firmly. Maya, you're not a fling. You're the woman I love. The words should have made her heart sore. Instead, they felt like another betrayal. Don't, she whispered. Don't say that to me now. It's true, he insisted. I love you. I've never felt this way about anyone before. That's why I have to find a way out of this engagement. That's why. Stop, Maya interrupted. Just stop. Alexander, you should have told me. From the beginning, you should have told me. Would you have given me a chance if I had? He asked quietly. The honest answer was no. Maya would have run in the opposite direction if she had known he was engaged. But that was not the point. That wasn't your choice to make, she said. I had a right to know. I had a right to decide for myself whether I wanted to be involved with someone who was committed to someone else. Alexander looked stricken. Maya, please. Give me time to figure this out. I can break the engagement. I can find a way to make this right. Maya looked at this man she had been falling so hard for. He was still beautiful, still magnetic, still everything that had drawn her to him in the first place. But now she could not look at him without seeing lies and deception and another woman's ring that should be on his finger. I can't, she said softly. I can't be the other woman, Alexander. I won't sneak around and wait for you to maybe choose me over your business obligations. You're not the other woman, he protested. What I have with her isn't real. What I have with you is. It doesn't matter, Maya said, tears starting to blur her vision. Real or not, she has a claim on you that I don't. And I can't live with that. She turned to go back into her building, but Alexander caught her arm. Maya, wait. Please. I love you. She looked back at him one last time. If you love me, she said quietly, you'll figure out your life before you drag me into it. Maya did not answer Alexander's calls. For 3 days, her phone buzzed constantly with his name lighting up the screen, but she could not bring herself to pick up. Each missed call felt like another small betrayal, another reminder that she had been living in a fantasy while he had a whole other life she knew nothing about. On the 4th day, she finally turned her phone off completely. She needed silence to think, to figure out how to put her life back together after having it turned completely upside down. She was sitting in her local coffee shop, laptop open as she searched job listings with the determination of someone who needed to keep busy, when a shadow fell across her table. Maya looked up, expecting to see the barista offering a refill, but instead found herself face to face with a woman she had never seen before. The woman was beautiful in the way that money could make someone beautiful. Perfect blonde hair, flawless makeup, designer clothes that probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent. She was also wearing an engagement ring that could have blinded passing satellites. "You must be Maya Chun," the woman said, sliding into the empty chair across from her without invitation. Maya's blood turned cold. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" "No, but I know you." The woman's smile was sharp as a blade. "I'm Victoria Ashworth, Alexander's fiancée." The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too warm. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her laptop, ready to flee. "I don't think we have anything to discuss." "Oh, but we do." Victoria's voice was honey-sweet with a steel core. "You see, my engagement announcement is supposed to run in the Times this Sunday. But, suddenly, my fiancé has cold feet. He's asking for delays, making excuses, talking about needing more time. I wonder why that might be." Maya forced herself to meet the other woman's eyes. Victoria was beautiful, poised, everything a CEO's wife should be. She looked like she belonged in Alexander's world in a way Maya never would. "I wouldn't know," Maya said quietly. "Alexander and I we're not seeing each other anymore." "Smart girl," Victoria said approvingly. "Because let me explain something to you about Alexander Kane. He's had many little affairs over the years. Secretaries, models, aspiring actresses who think they can change his mind about our arrangement. They all end the same way." The words hit Maya like physical blows, but she kept her expression neutral. "I'm not having this conversation. You need to hear this," Victoria continued ruthlessly. "Alexander and I have been engaged for 3 years. 3 years. Our families have business dealings worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Our wedding will be the social event of the season. Do you really think he's going to throw all of that away for a nobody from Brooklyn?" Maya stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Several other customers looked over curiously. "I said I'm not having this conversation." "Wait." Victoria's voice stopped her cold. "There's something else you should know about your Prince Charming. Something that might change how you see this whole situation." Against her better judgment, Maya paused. Victoria smiled triumphantly and opened her purse, pulling out her phone. "This is from last week," she said, turning the screen toward Maya. "The night before Alexander's sudden attack of conscience." The photo showed Alexander in a tuxedo, his arm around Victoria's waist. They were at some kind of elegant party, both smiling at the camera. But what made Maya's stomach drop was the date stamp. Last Tuesday, 2 days after Alexander had spent the night at her apartment talking about London and their future together. "The Henderson Charity Gala," Victoria said conversationally. "Alexander never misses it. We've been going together for years. Amazing how he forgot to mention it to you, isn't it?" Maya stared at the photo. Alexander looked comfortable, familiar with Victoria. Like they belonged together. Like whatever he had told Maya about their engagement being just a business arrangement was a lie. "He told me you barely knew each other," Maya said weakly. Victoria laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Oh, honey, we've known each other since we were children. Our mothers are best friends. We summer at the same houses, attend the same parties, move in the same circles. Alexander and I may not be passionately in love, but we're compatible. We understand each other's worlds." She put her phone away and leaned back in her chair, studying Maya like a scientist examining an interesting specimen. "You're pretty," she said finally. "I can see the appeal. Fresh-faced, genuine, probably tells him he's wonderful and means it. But let me ask you something, Maya Chun. What could you possibly offer a man like Alexander Kane that I can't?" The question hung in the air between them. Maya could not answer because she was asking herself the same thing. What could she offer? She was unemployed, broke, living in a studio apartment in a bad neighborhood. Victoria was everything Maya was not. Sophisticated, wealthy, connected, appropriate. "I thought so," Victoria said softly. "Alexander is going through a phase, that's all. He'll come to his senses. He always does. And when he marries me in 6 months, this little interlude will be forgotten by everyone except you." She stood up gracefully, smoothing down her perfectly pressed skirt. Stay away from him, Maya. For your own good. You'll only get hurt if you don't. Victoria walked away, leaving Maya standing frozen by her table. The other customers had gone back to their conversations and laptops, but Maya felt like everyone was staring at her. Like they could all see what a fool she had been. She grabbed her things and fled the coffee shop, Victoria's words echoing in her head. 3 years engaged. Business dealings worth millions. Social event of the season. And, underneath it all, the terrible suspicion that maybe Victoria was right. Maybe Maya was just the latest in a long line of women who had thought they could change Alexander Kane's mind about his predetermined future. Maya walked home through the gray October afternoon, her mind spinning. She tried to push away Victoria's poisonous words, but they had taken root. By the time she reached her apartment building, she was more confused than ever. She climbed the 3 flights to her floor and stopped short when she saw Alexander sitting on the steps outside her door. He looked terrible. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his expensive shirt wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes like he had not slept in days. Maya, he said, standing up quickly when he saw her. Thank God. I've been trying to reach you for days. I met your fiancé today, Maya said without preamble. Victoria Ashworth. Alexander's face went completely white. What? She showed me pictures from last week's charity gala. You two looked very comfortable together for people who barely know each other. Alexander ran his hands through his hair, a gesture Maya had once found endearing but now just made her angry. Maya, I can explain. Can you? She interrupted. Can you explain why you told me your engagement was just a business arrangement when you've been engaged for 3 years? Can you explain why you forgot to mention you were escorting Victoria to parties while you were planning romantic trips to London with me? It's not what you think, Alexander said desperately. Yes, we've known each other for years, but that doesn't mean I love her. That doesn't mean I want to marry her. Maya, I was trying to find a way out. I was trying to figure out how to break the engagement without destroying 2 companies and hundreds of jobs. And where exactly did I fit into these plans? Maya demanded. Was I supposed to wait around while you figured out your life? Was I supposed to be your secret mistress until you decided whether you could afford to choose love over money? No, Alexander said firmly. Maya, I love you. I want to be with you. I was going to tell Victoria this week that the engagement is off. Were you? Maya pulled out her keys, her hands shaking with anger and hurt. Or were you going to string me along while you had your cake and ate it too? That's not fair, Alexander protested. You know what we have is real. You know I care about you. Maya turned to face him fully. Do I? Because Victoria seems to think I'm just the latest in a long line of your affairs. She seems to think you've done this before. Alexander's silence was damning. Maya felt her heart break all over again. It's true, isn't it? She whispered. I'm not the first woman you've told you loved while engaged to someone else. Maya, answer me, she demanded. Have you cheated on Victoria before? Alexander looked away, and Maya had her answer. Jesus, she breathed. How many others have there been? It doesn't matter, Alexander said quietly. None of them mattered. You matter. You're different. I'm sure you told them they were different too, Maya said bitterly. She unlocked her door and pushed it open. Goodbye, Alexander. Maya, please, he said, following her into her apartment. Don't let Victoria poison what we have. She's manipulating you. Is she? Maya dropped her bag and turned to face him. Because everything she told me seems to be true. You are engaged. You have been for 3 years. You did take her to a party last week while telling me I was the only woman you wanted to be with. The gala was a business obligation, Alexander said. I had to go. And, yes, I had to take Victoria because people were expecting it. But, Maya, I thought about you the entire time. I wished I was there with you instead. But, you weren't, Maya said simply. You were there with her, playing the part of the devoted fiancé while I sat here planning our imaginary future. Alexander stepped toward her, his hands outstretched like he was approaching a wounded animal. Maya, I know I handled this badly. I know I should have told you about Victoria from the beginning. But I was scared. I was scared you'd walk away before I had a chance to show you how I felt. And you were right, Maya said. I would have walked away. Because I have more self-respect than to knowingly get involved with an engaged man. So what happens now? Alexander asked quietly. Do we just throw away everything we have because of a piece of paper that means nothing to me? Maya looked at him standing in her small living room, this beautiful, powerful man who claimed to love her. For a moment, she almost wavered, almost let herself believe that love could conquer all, that they could find a way to make this work. But then, she thought about Victoria's confident smile, her casual mention of other affairs, the way she had looked at Maya like she was a temporary inconvenience. She thought about the photo of Alexander with his arm around his fiancée, both of them smiling like they owned the world. That piece of paper may mean nothing to you, Maya said finally, but it means something to her. And, more importantly, your behavior means something to me. Alexander, even if you break your engagement tomorrow, how can I trust you? How can I believe that in 5 years, when you're tired of me, you won't find someone new to fall in love with while keeping me around as a comfortable option? Alexander's face crumpled. Maya, that's not who I am. Not with you, isn't it? Maya asked sadly, because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like who you are. A man who wants everything and doesn't want to choose. A man who thinks he can have a fiancée and a girlfriend and somehow make both women happy. I never wanted to make Victoria happy, Alexander protested. I never wanted her at all. But you agreed to marry her, Maya pointed out. 3 years ago, you put that ring on her finger and made promises to her and her family. Maybe you don't love her, but you owe her better than this. And you owe me better than this. Alexander was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. When he looked up, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. What if I break the engagement? He asked quietly. What if I walk away from everything? The merger, the business deals, all of it. What if I choose you? Maya felt her heart crack wide open. Because she could hear the sincerity in his voice, could see the desperation in his eyes. He meant it. In this moment, he really meant it. And then what? She asked gently. Then, I'm the woman who broke up Alexander Kane's engagement. I'm the homewrecker who destroyed a 3-year relationship and cost 2 companies millions of dollars. How long before you resent me for that? How long before you start wondering what your life would have been like if you'd made the responsible choice? I would never resent you, Alexander said firmly. You don't know that, Maya replied. People fall out of love, Alexander. Passion fades. What happens to us when the excitement wears off, and you realize what you gave up for me? Alexander stood up abruptly and began pacing her small living room like a caged animal. So that's it. We just give up? We just let other people's expectations and business deals destroy what we have. What we have is built on lies, Maya said quietly. I fell in love with a man who told me he was available. I fell in love with someone who doesn't exist. I exist, Alexander said fiercely. Everything I told you about how I feel, everything we shared, that was real. Maybe, Maya acknowledged. But it was also incomplete. You gave me part of yourself while keeping the rest hidden. How am I supposed to love someone when I don't even know who they really are? Alexander stopped pacing and looked at her with such raw pain that Maya almost went to him, almost wrapped her arms around him, and told him they would figure it out somehow. So what do you want me to do? He asked. Tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do it. Maya closed her eyes, fighting back tears. I want you to figure out who you are and what you really want. And I want you to do it without me. Because I can't be part of this mess anymore, Alexander. I won't be the other woman. And I won't be the reason you blow up your life. You're not the reason, he insisted. My life was already a mess. You were the first thing that made sense. Then, fix your life, Maya said simply. Make your choices based on what you really want, not on what you think you should want or what your family expects or what's best for business. Figure out who Alexander Kane really is when no one else is making decisions for him. And then, he asked hopefully, when I figure it out? Maya looked at this man she had loved so completely, so foolishly. He was still beautiful to her, still magnetic, still everything that had drawn her in. But now she could see the flaws too. The indecision, the people-pleasing, the way he wanted to have everything without making hard choices. I don't know, she said honestly. Maybe by then, I'll have figured out who I am too. Maybe I'll have found someone who can love me without conditions or complications. Or maybe we'll find our way back to each other. But, Alexander, that's a maybe, not a promise. Alexander's shoulders sagged in defeat. So this is goodbye. This is goodbye, Maya confirmed, even though the words felt like swallowing glass. He moved toward the door, then paused with his hand on the knob. Maya, I need you to know something. I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. Never. If I lose you because of my mistakes, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Then, don't lose me because of your mistakes, Maya said softly. Lose me because you chose something else. Make a choice, Alexander. A real one. After he left, Maya collapsed onto her couch and cried until she was empty. Then, she picked up her phone, turned it back on, and did something she should have done weeks ago. She called her best friend Sarah. Maya. Sarah's voice was bright with surprise. Where have you been? I've been trying to reach you for days. I've been making terrible decisions, Maya said, her voice hoarse from crying. Okay, Sarah said immediately. I'm coming over. With wine and chocolate and tissues. Don't move. 30 minutes later, Sarah was sitting on Maya's couch with a bottle of cheap wine and a bag of groceries from the corner store. Maya told her everything. About Alexander, about Victoria, about the fairy tale that had turned into a nightmare. Holy shit, Sarah said when Maya finished. Maya, I can't believe you didn't tell me about any of this. I thought it was going to work out, Maya said miserably. I thought he was different. He might be, Sarah said carefully. I mean, the fact that he told you about the engagement instead of letting you find out some other way has to count for something. He only told me because he got caught, Maya pointed out. If that phone call hadn't happened, I might have gone to London with him while he was still engaged to someone else. Sarah was quiet for a moment, pouring them both more wine. What are you going to do now? I don't know, Maya admitted. Start over, I guess. Find a job, move on, pretend this never happened. Do you think he'll really break the engagement? Maya considered this. I think he wants to. But wanting to do something and actually doing it are different things. Alexander is used to having everything he wants. He's not used to making hard choices. And if he does? If he shows up here in a few weeks and tells you he's free? Maya stared into her wine glass. I don't know. Part of me would want to believe him. But, Sarah, how could I ever trust him completely? How could I ever be sure I wasn't just the woman he chose because I was newer and more exciting than his fiancée? Love is always a risk, Sarah said gently. Whether someone is engaged or not, there's always a chance they'll change their mind, find someone else, decide you're not what they want anymore. But this is different, Maya insisted. This isn't just about the future. This is about the past. He lied to me, Sarah, for weeks. He did, Sarah agreed. And that sucks. But, Maya, I've seen you with other guys. I've watched you date men who treated you badly, who took you for granted, who never saw how amazing you are. And this Alexander guy, engagement aside, sounds like he actually sees you, actually appreciates you. It doesn't matter, Maya said firmly. I can't be with someone I don't trust. Okay, Sarah said. Then don't. But, Maya, don't close yourself off completely because one man made some really stupid decisions. The right guy is out there somewhere. Maya wanted to believe her friend, but sitting in her tiny apartment with her broken heart and her uncertain future, it was hard to imagine loving anyone else the way she had loved Alexander Kane. Over the next few weeks, Maya threw herself into job hunting with single-minded determination. She applied for everything remotely related to marketing, even positions that were below her experience level. She needed structure, income, and, most importantly, distraction. She got 3 interviews in 2 weeks, which felt like a miracle after months of rejections. The third interview was for a position at a small but growing nonprofit that helped connect unemployed workers with job training programs. The salary was lower than Maya had been hoping for, but the mission spoke to her. We're looking for someone who understands what it's like to struggle, the director, a warm woman named Janet, told her. Someone who can connect with our clients because they've been there themselves. I've definitely been there, Maya said honestly. I've been unemployed for 4 months. I know how isolating it can feel, how your confidence starts to erode when you get rejection after rejection. Janet smiled. That's exactly what we need. When can you start? Maya felt tears of relief prick her eyes. Whenever you need me. How about Monday? Walking home from that interview, Maya felt something she had not experienced in weeks. Hope. Not the desperate, fragile hope she had built around Alexander, but something steadier. something that came from within herself rather than from someone else's promise. She was so lost in thought that she almost missed the figure sitting on the steps of her building. But when she looked up and saw Alexander waiting for her, her heart started pounding all over again. He looked different, thinner, more tired, but also somehow clearer, more present than she had ever seen him. "Congratulations," he said as she approached. "You look happy. How do you know I have something to be congratulated for?" Maya asked carefully. "You have that look," he said with a small smile. "The same look you had when you told me about your dreams of starting your own company. Like you accomplished something important." Despite everything, Maya found herself smiling back. "I got a job. A good one. With people who seem to actually value what I bring to the table." "That's wonderful," Alexander said sincerely. "I'm happy for you." They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Maya noticed he was not wearing the expensive watch he usually wore. His clothes were nice, but not the designer suits she was used to seeing him in. "What are you doing here, Alexander?" she asked finally. "I wanted to tell you that I broke the engagement," he said quietly. "Officially, publicly, permanently." The announcement ran in yesterday's paper. Maya felt her stomach drop. "What?" "I chose," he said simply. "You told me to make a choice, so I did. I chose you, Maya. I chose love over money, over business deals, over what other people expected from me." Maya stared at him in shock. She had been so sure he would not be able to go through with it, so certain that when push came to shove, he would choose the safe, profitable path. "What about the business deals?" she asked. "The merger?" "There will be other deals," Alexander said. "Other partnerships. The company will survive." "And Victoria?" Alexander's expression darkened slightly. Victoria was not pleased, but I think part of her was relieved. She gets to play the wrong party now, which she's enjoying. And she'll find someone else. Someone who can give her the kind of marriage she really wants. Maya felt like she was in a dream. "Alexander, I can't believe you actually." "I did," he interrupted. "I did what you asked me to do. I figured out what I really wanted. And what I really wanted was you. Maya, I love you. I want to build a life with you. I want to do this right this time, with no secrets, no other obligations. Just us." Maya looked at him standing there, having given up everything for her, and felt her heart breaking all over again. Because she could see the hope in his eyes, the expectation that now that he had made his grand gesture, everything would be fine between them. "Alexander," she said gently, "I can't." The hope in his eyes flickered and died. "What? I can't just pick up where we left off," Maya explained. "You breaking your engagement doesn't erase the weeks of lies. It doesn't change the fact that you let me fall in love with you while you were committed to someone else." "But I fixed it," Alexander said desperately. "I chose you. Isn't that what you wanted?" "I wanted you to make a choice for yourself," Maya clarified. "Not for me." "Alexander, you gave up your engagement to prove something to me. But what happens when proving things to me becomes just as much of a burden as your business obligations were?" Alexander stepped closer to her, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "Maya, I don't understand. I did what you asked. I chose love. I chose you. You chose the idea of me," Maya said sadly. "You chose the romance, the passion, the escape from your complicated life. But, Alexander, real love isn't just about grand gestures and dramatic choices. It's about trust and honesty and being partners through ordinary days as well as extraordinary ones." "We can have that," he insisted. "Maya, we can have all of that." Maya looked at this man who had turned her world upside down, who had shown her what it felt like to be truly desired, who had just given up millions of dollars and a predetermined future for the chance to be with her. "Maybe we could have," she said quietly. "But I'll never know if you love me or if you love the idea of choosing love over duty. And you'll never know if I'm with you because I love you or because I'm grateful for your sacrifice." Alexander's face crumpled. "So what was all of this for? What was the point of any of it if it doesn't matter that I'm free now?" "The point," Maya said gently, "was that you learned you could make your own choices. You learned you didn't have to live the life other people planned for you. That's not nothing, Alexander. That's everything. But I want to live it with you," he whispered. "I know," Maya said, her own tears starting to fall. 6 months later, Maya's life had found a rhythm she had never expected to enjoy. Her job at the nonprofit was challenging, but fulfilling. She worked with people who had been knocked down by life, but refused to stay down. and their resilience inspired her every day. She had moved to a larger apartment in a better neighborhood, nothing fancy but clean and safe with actual separate rooms. Most importantly, she had learned to be alone without being lonely. She filled her evenings with cooking classes, book clubs, and weekend visits to museums she had never had time to explore before. She was discovering who Maya Chun was when she was not trying to fit into someone else's life. It was a Friday afternoon in April when Maya first heard Alexander's name again in months. She was at her desk reviewing applications for their job training program when her colleague Janet knocked on her office door. "Maya, there's someone here to see you," Janet said, her expression curious. "Says he has a business proposition that might interest our organization." Maya looked up from her paperwork. "What kind of business proposition?" "He wants to fund a new program. Something about entrepreneurship training for women trying to start their own businesses." Janet paused. "His name is Kane. Alexander Kane. Says he knows you." Maya felt her heart skip several beats. "He's here? Now. Waiting in the conference room," Janet confirmed. "Maya, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Something like that," Maya managed. Can you tell him I'll be there in 5 minutes?" After Janet left, Maya sat at her desk trying to calm her racing pulse. Alexander was here, at her workplace, wanting to fund programs for women entrepreneurs. She could not decide if it was incredibly thoughtful or incredibly manipulative. She checked her reflection in her computer screen and smoothed her hair. The woman looking back at her was different from the one Alexander had known. More confident, more settled in her own skin. Maya had learned to dress for herself rather than to impress others, and it showed. Taking a deep breath, she walked to the conference room and paused at the doorway. Alexander was standing by the window, looking out at the busy street below. He was thinner than she remembered, and his hair was longer, less perfectly styled. He was wearing jeans and a simple button-down shirt instead of his usual expensive suits. "Hello, Alexander," she said quietly. He turned around, and Maya was struck by how different he looked. The sharp, corporate edge was gone. He looked softer somehow, more real. "Maya," he said, and his smile was warm but cautious. "You look wonderful." "Thank you," she replied, staying by the door. "Janet said something about a business proposition?" "Right." Alexander gestured to the chairs around the conference table. "Would you sit with me for a few minutes? I promise this is legitimate business, not some elaborate scheme to see you again." Maya studied his face, looking for signs of the manipulation she had grown to expect from him. But his expression was open, earnest. Against her better judgment, she sat down across from him. "I've been following the work your organization does," Alexander began. "The job placement programs, the skills training, the support groups. It's impressive." "Thank you," Maya said carefully. "But I have a feeling that's not why you're here." Alexander smiled ruefully. "You always could see right through me." "No, that's not entirely why I'm here. Maya, I want to fund a new program. Something specifically for women who want to start their own businesses but don't have access to traditional funding or mentorship." Maya raised an eyebrow. "And why would you want to do that?" "Because 6 months ago, a very smart woman told me I should figure out who I was when no one else was making decisions for me," Alexander said quietly. "So I did. And it turns out, when I'm making my own choices, I care a lot more about using my resources to help people than I do about increasing quarterly profits." Maya was quiet for a moment, studying him. "What happened to Kane Enterprises?" "Still thriving," Alexander said. "But I stepped down as CEO. My cousin Marcus is running it now, and he's doing a better job than I ever did. I kept my shares, but I'm not involved in day-to-day operations anymore." "So what do you do now?" "I invest in small businesses, particularly ones started by people who have trouble getting traditional funding. Women, minorities, people without college degrees or family connections." Alexander leaned forward slightly. "Maya, I've funded 12 businesses in the last 6 months. 10 of them are already profitable." Maya felt a flutter of something that might have been pride. "That's wonderful, Alexander." "I'm good at it," he said simply. "Turns out all those years of analyzing business plans and market potential actually taught me something useful. I can spot good ideas and good people, and I like being able to say yes to dreams instead of crushing them." "And you want to partner with us, why?" "Because you have something I don't," Alexander explained. "You have trust. You have relationships with people who need help, but are suspicious of handouts. You understand the community in a way I never could. Maya considered this. It was true that their organization had built strong relationships with people who had been failed by the system before. Many of their clients were wary of programs that seemed too good to be true or that came with hidden strings attached. What exactly are you proposing? She asked. A pilot program, Alexander said. 20 women, chosen by your organization based on your criteria. I provide funding for them to start their businesses, not loans, grants. Along with mentorship, business plan development, marketing support, whatever they need to succeed. And what do you get out of it? Alexander was quiet for a moment. The chance to do something meaningful with my money. And, maybe, if the program works, the chance to expand it to other cities. Maya had to admit it sounded like a good idea. Their organization worked with many women who had great business ideas, but no way to fund them. Banks would not lend to people without collateral or credit history. Family and friends usually did not have money to invest. But Maya was still suspicious of Alexander's motives. Why this organization? She asked. There are larger nonprofits, more established programs. Why come here? Alexander met her eyes directly. Because this is where you work. And I trust your judgment about people who deserve a chance. There it was. Maya had been waiting for the personal angle, and there it was. Alexander, she began, but he held up his hand. I know what you're thinking, he said. And you're right to be suspicious. But, Maya, I've spent 6 months trying to figure out how to apologize to you. How to show you that I learned something from what happened between us. This isn't about winning you back. This is about being the person you helped me realize I could be. Maya looked at him sitting across from her. This man who had broken her heart, and then spent months apparently trying to put himself back together. She wanted to be cynical, to assume this was all an elaborate manipulation. But something in his eyes made her believe he was telling the truth. I'll need to discuss it with Janet and the board, she said finally. This is a big decision. Of course, Alexander agreed. I've prepared a detailed proposal with budgets, timelines, success metrics. Everything you'd need to evaluate the program properly. He pulled a folder from the briefcase beside his chair. Take all the time you need. Maya accepted the folder, but did not open it. Alexander, I have to ask. If I say no, if we decide not to partner with you, will you take the program somewhere else? Yes, he said without hesitation. This program is going to happen regardless. I think it would work better with your organization's involvement. But if you're not comfortable with that, I'll find another way. Maya appreciated his honesty. And if we say yes, what happens between us personally? Alexander was quiet for a long moment. I'd like to be friends, he said finally. If that's possible, I'd like to know how you're doing. Maybe have coffee occasionally and talk about books and terrible movies like we used to. But, Maya, I'm not here to try to win you back. I'm not here because I think funding your programs will make you fall in love with me again. Did you ever fall out of love with me? Maya asked quietly. Alexander's smile was sad. No, but I learned to love myself enough to want you to be happy, even if that happiness doesn't include me. Maya felt her chest tighten with emotion. This was not the same man who had tried to have everything 6 months ago. This Alexander had learned something about sacrifice, about putting someone else's needs before his own desires. I'll review the proposal, she said finally. And I'll give you an answer within a week. Thank you, Alexander said, standing up. Maya, there's one more thing. I know this might be awkward, but I wanted you to know that Victoria got married last month. To someone she actually loves this time. Maya felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. I'm glad for her. She asked me to tell you something, actually, Alexander continued. She said to tell you that you were right to walk away. That any woman who could make me question everything I thought I wanted was someone worth respecting. Maya was surprised. She said that. In so many words. Alexander moved toward the door, then paused. Maya, for what it's worth, she also said I was an idiot to let you go. But that I was a bigger idiot to think I could keep you without being worthy of you. After Alexander left, Maya sat in the empty conference room staring at the proposal folder. Janet knocked and came in, her expression curious. So, Janet asked, what did he want? To fund a women's entrepreneurship program, Maya said absently. That's wonderful. Janet's enthusiasm was immediate. Maya, do you know how long we've been trying to find funding for something like this? This could change everything for so many of our clients. I know, Maya agreed. Janet, I need to tell you something about my history with Alexander Kane. Maya explained the whole story, the affair, the engagement, the lies, the heartbreak. Janet listened without judgment, occasionally asking clarifying questions. So this is your ex? Janet said when Maya finished. The one who broke your heart. Yes. And now he wants to give us money to help women start businesses. Yes. Janet was quiet for a moment. Maya, I understand if you're not comfortable working with him. We can find other funding sources. Can we? Maya asked. Janet, this could fund 20 women, 20 dreams, 20 chances for people to change their lives. Yes, but not at the cost of your well-being, Janet said firmly. Maya, you've built a good life here. You're happy. I won't let some man from your past disrupt that, no matter how much money he's offering. Maya felt a rush of affection for her boss. Thank you. But, Janet, I think I need to separate my personal feelings from what's best for our clients. And what's best for our clients is this program. Are you sure? Maya thought about the women she worked with every day. Single mothers with brilliant ideas, but no capital. Immigrants with skills and determination, but no connections. Women who had been told their dreams were too small, or too big, or too unrealistic. I'm sure, she said. But I want safeguards. I want everything in writing. I want oversight from our board. And I want it clear that if there are any personal complications, I'll remove myself from the program rather than jeopardize it. Janet nodded approvingly. Sounds like a plan. Maya, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you still have feelings for him? Maya considered this honestly. I'll always care about Alexander. What we had was real, even if it was complicated. But, Janet, I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago. I know who I am now, what I want, what I'm worth. If Alexander wants to be part of my life in some capacity, it has to be on terms that work for me. And if he wants more than friendship, then he'll have to prove he's worth the risk, Maya said simply. And I'll have to decide if I'm willing to take it. Over the next week, Maya reviewed Alexander's proposal thoroughly. It was comprehensive, well-researched, and generous almost to a fault. The budget was realistic, but ample. The timeline was achievable. The success metrics were fair and measurable. She also did her own research on Alexander's other business investments. Everything he had told her checked out. He was funding small businesses run by people who would never get traditional bank loans. And his success rate was impressive. More importantly, the people he had invested in spoke highly of him. They described him as hands-on, but not controlling, supportive, but not condescending. Maya called a board meeting to discuss the proposal. She was honest about her personal history with Alexander, and the board appreciated her transparency. After much discussion, they voted unanimously to accept the partnership. Maya called Alexander on a Thursday afternoon to give him the news. We'd like to move forward with the program, she said without preamble when he answered. That's wonderful, he said, and she could hear genuine happiness in his voice. Maya, thank you for this. I know it couldn't have been an easy decision. It wasn't about easy, Maya replied. It was about what's right for our clients. Alexander, we need to set some ground rules. Of course, whatever you need. This is a business partnership. We'll communicate through official channels, attend scheduled meetings, maintain professional boundaries. If you try to use this program to insert yourself into my personal life, the partnership is over. Understood, Alexander said immediately. Maya, I meant what I said. I'm not here to win you back. I'm here to do good work. Good, Maya said. Then, let's do good work. The Women's Entrepreneurship Program launched 6 weeks later. Maya was amazed by the quality of applications they received. Women who wanted to start catering businesses, cleaning services, jewelry companies, consulting firms, online boutiques. Each application represented someone's dream of independence and self-sufficiency. The selection process was rigorous. Maya and her team interviewed dozens of candidates, looking not just at business plans but at determination, resilience, and commitment. In the end, they chose 20 women whose stories made Maya believe in the power of second chances. Alexander attended the orientation meeting where the selected participants were announced. Maya watched him interact with the women, and she was impressed despite herself. He was respectful, encouraging, and genuinely interested in their ideas. He asked thoughtful questions, and offered practical advice without being patronizing. After the meeting, several of the participants approached Maya. "Your partner seems really nice," said Rosa, a single mother who wanted to start a food truck business. "Not like those other investors who talked down to you." "He listened to us," added Jennifer, who planned to open a tutoring center. "Really listened. That doesn't happen much." Maya felt a flutter of pride that she tried to suppress. Alexander was doing exactly what he had promised, being supportive without being controlling, helpful without being condescending. Over the following months, Maya watched the program develop. The women met weekly for workshops on business planning, marketing, financial management. Alexander brought in experts from various fields to teach specialized skills. He was present at many of the sessions, but he never tried to take over or position himself as the star of the show. Maya found herself enjoying their professional interactions more than she had expected. Alexander had always been intelligent and insightful, but now those qualities were focused on helping others rather than advancing his own interests. He had ideas and resources, but he deferred to Maya's expertise about what their clients needed. 3 months into the program, Maya was working late in her office when Alexander knocked on her door. "Sorry to bother you," he said. "I was just leaving a meeting with Rosa about her food truck permits. Janet said you were still here." "Just finishing up some reports," Maya said, looking up from her computer. "How did the meeting go?" "Well, I think the permit process is more complicated than either of us expected, but we found someone who can help navigate it." Alexander hesitated in the doorway. "Maya, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Would you like to grab dinner? There's something I want to discuss about the program, and we could both probably use a break from these fluorescent lights." Maya considered this. They had been working together for months without any personal drama. Maybe they really could be friends. "Okay," she said, "but somewhere casual. I'm not dressed for anywhere fancy." They went to a small Italian restaurant near the office. Nothing romantic, just a neighborhood place with good food and reasonable prices. Alexander ordered a beer instead of wine, and Maya found herself relaxing as they talked about the program participants and their progress. "Rosa's going to be incredibly successful," Alexander said over pasta. "Did you know she's already developed relationships with 3 different office buildings that want to have her food truck visit regularly?" "She's been planning this for years," Maya agreed. "She just needed someone to believe in her." "What about Jennifer? How's the tutoring center coming along?" "She found a location," Maya said excitedly. "A space in a community center that's perfect for her needs. She'll be able to offer after-school programs and weekend classes." They talked about each of the 20 women, and maybe someday we'll find our way back to each other. But right now, we both need to figure out who we are when we're not caught up in the drama of forbidden love and impossible choices. Maya turned toward her building, then looked back at him one more time. "I'm proud of you," she said softly, "for choosing yourself, even if you thought you were choosing me." As she walked up the steps to her apartment, Maya could feel Alexander watching her go. She did not look back. She could not, because if she did, she might change her mind, and they would both end up trapped in a love story built on sacrifice and guilt rather than trust and partnership. Inside her apartment, Maya sat by her window and watched Alexander drive away for what she knew would be the last time. She cried for what they had lost, for what they might have had, for the fairy tale that had never really had a chance to become reality. But underneath the sadness, Maya felt something else growing, a quiet pride in her own strength, her own worth, her own ability to choose what was best for her even when it hurt. Tomorrow she would start her new job. Tomorrow she would begin building a life based on her own choices, her own dreams, her own definition of what love should look like. Tonight, she grieved for Alexander Kane and the love that had been real but not enough. Then, she pulled free of his grip and walked away, leaving him standing alone on the sidewalk. Maya made it all the way to her apartment before she collapsed onto her couch and let herself cry. For the fairy tale that had turned into a nightmare. For the man she had thought she knew. For the future that had seemed so bright just that morning. She cried until she had no tears left. And then, she sat in the dark and wondered how she had been so stupid as to believe that someone like Alexander Kane could really love someone like her without complications, without conditions, without other claims on his heart. Outside her window, the city glittered with 1,000 lights. each one representing someone else's life, someone else's dreams, someone else's heartbreak. Maya had never felt so alone.